Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I sound a little rough this morning because I am a little rough this morning. I'm trying to drink enough coffee to get it through, so if you hear me slurping on coffee, mind your own damn business. So you're looking at my chickens. You're looking at my chickens because I look the way I sound. And I just didn't want to put you through that. So when we're not rolling in footage of what we're, the subject matter, you can look at my chickies. I think they're cute. So anyway, welcome to the apocalypse, right? Everybody, yeah, welcome to the apocalypse. It's been a testing and trying situation for everybody. We're all trying to get used to what to do in this new apocalypse that we're dealing with, because this is not like anything any of us thought we'd have to prepare for. We thought there'd be like a legitimate reason and not just a fear over. Anyway, I won't go into the politics of that on this channel. What I will go into is, because of all of this mayhem, you guys have all run out and you've bought yourself new rifles. Congratulations, I'm very proud of you. I'm very happy that you've done this. I'm excited to see so many people entering the game right now. But I know a lot of you have been asking me questions on what optics to put on your new rifles. So let's get through this introduction and we'll dig into that. Like I said, we're back. It's the apocalypse. It's the Armageddon. It's the end of the world as we know it, because everybody's freaking out over a virus. So things might get scarce and people might have to start defending, home, life, and property. So what did you do? You went out, you got yourself a rifle. That is the best decision you've ever made. Did you get yourself an AR-15? Did you get yourself a bolt gun? Did you get yourself a shotgun? That's cool. I'm glad you did that, but let's talk about the optics for it. The first thing you have to think about is this. Buying a gun and buying optics is like buying a motor vehicle. Before you even go out, you may not realize this, but you've already established your philosophy of use. That is, when you go to the dealership, do you go straight to the pickup trucks? Do you go straight to the cargo vans? Do you go straight to the minivans or the sedans or the, economy vehicles? Which one have you already decided to go to? See, you may not notice that you've done this, but at some point you've gone through your philosophy of use and you've decided exactly what kind of vehicle in terms of type you were going to need. Because, if you're trying to get there super fast, you're not going to want a cargo van. But if you're trying to move a lot of friends around, then you're not going to want a sports car, right? So you've already gone through some of that in your head, and you've decided that your purpose for this vehicle is this. So this is the type of vehicle you need. All right, so you have to extend that to your guns. Now, if you've already bought your rifle, and I'm assuming most of you have by now, I'm hoping that most of you have by now, you may have not put a lot of thought into philosophy of use when you bought it. I'm gonna do a video on choosing the right rifle for your philosophy of use, but I'm guessing that we're at a point now where the best thing to do is go into the scopes first for all of you that have been asking me this question. So when you're thinking about optics, you have a lot of options out there. You have everything from your basic iron sights, your backup sights, all these things. You have red dots, holographic sights. You have 0 to 4 low power variable optics, or 0 to 6 or 0 to 8 or 1 to 8, or however you want to state that, but all of these low powered variable optics. And then you've got magnified optics, variable and otherwise. You have all these different options that you really do need to consider based on what you're going to use this rifle for. Are you using this rifle? Well, what range are you planning on shooting in? What is your purpose? If it is defense, which I'm assuming everybody who went out and bought a rifle now is doing it to defend something, what is its defensive purpose? What is the range that you anticipate shooting it within? If you're using it inside your home as a defensive weapon inside your home, then you obviously don't need a magnified optic. Okay, so let's go into your home defense scenario. Now, I'm going to do an entire video on choosing the AR-15 for home defense. I personally think it's a bad idea under 99.9% of circumstances. I do. I think it's a bad home defense gun. And we're going to discuss that, like I said, in a coming video. So make sure you watch that video, because there's things you have not thought about that are going into that video. But, you know, let's say that that's what you've decided to do. You're going to use an AR-15 for your home. And in this sort of scenario, if there's a without law sort of scenario, it's probably not, it's not a bad idea. There's actually, and that'll get covered in that video, but there's actually a legitimate reason. You know, we're talking about a potential for groups of people. And not just potential, that potential always exists, but we're talking about a plausible probability of large numbers of people trying to get into your home to get your toilet paper, because, you know, there's a bunch of them, they don't have any, and they figure you might because you're not coming out of your house. So you might get, you know, invaded by a group of people, at which point something like an AR-15 with a relatively short barrel and easy to control lightweight AR-15 is probably a great solution. So yeah, what do you want for optics? Well, if you have great eyesight, which I do not, it's hard to beat iron sights inside 20, 30 yards. It really is. They're, you know, quick acquisition. They don't cover up any of your field of view. You know, you can move from target to target quickly. Precision is not really a big deal inside your home, because all you really have to do is point and shoot. You know, you could, without sighting anything at all, hit a man-sized target in your home from pretty much any range inside your home, unless you live in Shaquille O'Neal's mansion where you've got 100 yards of hallways. You know, in a normal person's home, you have no problem sighting in at any range with iron sights. So what I would suggest for your home defense rifle in that situation would probably be just that: iron sights and a flashlight. But there's a couple of caveats there. You do have to remember that there's a likelihood that these kind of events are going to happen in the middle of the night when the lights are off and your flashlight is beaming on the target in front of you, which means you won't be able to see your sights at all, and you won't be fully functional. You'll be waking up from a sleep, and you'll be in sort of that morning stupor that almost like I'm in right now. I'm kind of in a morning stupor myself. I'm not getting enough coffee into my bloodstream yet. You know, you might not be as accurate as you need to be in that sort of a stupor. So this is where the argument for the red dots and holographs come in handy. You know, you flip that thing on. If you get something like one of these, you know, I know SIG does it. I forget who else in the budget brands do it. I think Holosun has one that, you know, you can leave it on, and when you're not holding it, it turns off. And when you pick it up, it flips right back on again, so you're ready to sight it in. So if you have something like that, and you need to acquire a target in your room in the middle of the night, you can see the dot. And so now all you need is a light flashlight, not a super bright one, just a small flashlight, enough to recognize who you're pointing your gun at. I do say this: if we're talking about handguns, I don't believe in putting flashlights on handguns for home defense unless you live alone, because frankly, there are a lot of people who's going to come in and out of my home, since I have a 16-year-old daughter, that I probably don't want to point a gun at if they surprise me, being my 16-year-old daughter. I don't want to have to point a gun at her just to see who she is. I want to have a independent flashlight that I can point, right? You know, I don't want to be pointing my gun at them. It might be somebody that I don't want. Anyway, you get the gist. So yeah, I think your red dot, your flashlight on your rifle for this scenario, in this Armageddon scenario that we're in, where groups of people coming in That's good. And with a red dot, you can hit, is if you have decent eyes, you can hit a target out pretty far. You know, the pros all say, well, I have no problem hitting 300-400 yards with a red dot. Sure, okay, that's fine. But human beings don't have that much skill. Most of you, if you're coming to this page to look at optics, you are not going to hit something at 400 yards with your red dot. That's just a fact. I'm sorry. It's just how it is. So you will, you plan on that red dot being useful to you inside 50 yards. So if your entire property line doesn't extend more than 50 yards, and you have no reason to shoot beyond that, which in reality, the chances of having to shoot beyond that are pretty slim. Beyond your property line, that is, are pretty slim. It seems like a bad idea. So the point is, if you have, you know, inside 50 yards of your property that you're trying to defend, then a red dot is probably all you're ever going to need. And I think I would just stick with that. But if you're like me and your eyes are a little old, you can't really focus on things. You know, a scope is good for target acquisition and target, what's the word I'm looking for? It's for being able to see who you are shooting at. Don't mind the plane flying over. It's an oddly loud morning out here. You want to know who you're shooting at. So if it's nighttime and there's somebody hiding behind, you know, your pool on the other side of the yard, 50 yards away, you might want to crank that scope down a little bit so you can actually see their face and you can see who you may or may not be shooting at, because you might end up shooting somebody you didn't want to shoot. For that purpose, guys like me might prefer a low power variable optic for your home and property defense. So, you know, I can crank it to 2, 3, 4 power and see what's going on across that yard, even if it's a small animal, even if I'm considering shooting some critter that's coming in my yard. Because, you know, in the apocalypse, it's not just going to be people who are hungry, it's going to be the animals too. They're going to get a little brazen, they're going to come onto your property. You may end up having to shoot one of them, and you may shoot them for food rather than defense. But, you know, just remember that these bullets might skip off the ground and bounce up and hit a neighbor somewhere, and you might start a war in your neighborhood that you didn't want to start. So keep that in mind. If you shoot something with your AR-15 in your yard, you might want to cut it up and share it for the neighbors so they don't shoot at you. So yeah, there's a good argument for like a 0 to 4 or a 1 to 4 or 1 to 6, you know, one of these low-powered variable optics. Now, the downside of these is they are, you know, the budget ones are really bad about this. The high-end ones aren't so bad, but your field of view shrinks significantly. You have to have proper sight alignment on those. It's not like a red dot where you don't even have to really be mounted on that rifle. You can kind of, if you can see the dot, it's on the target. With the low-powered variable optic, you have to actually pull it up to your cheek, get a good cheek weld, and get you know, be lined up on that sight for it to be proper, and for you to be able to see the target. So, you know, there's a downside. It's not quite as fast for your average person. Again, these pros online all the time, they do this not because they want to help you, but because they want to show off how talented they are. So anything you see, some of these, you know, incredible shooters online that say, oh yeah, you can get on it just as quick as you can a red dot. Well, no, they can. You can't. You definitely can't. It's going to take a lot of practice. And given this situation, I don't think practice is going to be affordable. Ammo has disappeared. So if you go out and practice, you're spending ammo that you might want to keep. So yeah, you're going to have that problem. Now, is it worth it? You know, I say yes, because if I'm clearing my inside of my house, I'm clearing it with my full-size handgun and a flashlight in my other hand. If I need to go outside, I'm grabbing either the shotgun or the AR-15, depending on, you know, what I'm thinking might happen. Chances are a shotgun's going to do it. But if it's a group of people, then you're going back to, you're going to need more than, you know, what a shotgun can do. So yeah, then I'm looking inside my property, and with the low power variable optic, you get out to 4 power, you should be able to hit you know, 100 yards easily. You get into longer range stuff and you start talking about, you know, magnified optics. And here's the other thing. Okay, so if you're buying it sort of as a backup and you're not worried that it's really going to get bad, that you're really going to use it, you're more concerned with being able to hit targets for fun, you know, blinking. You get into something like a 2 to 7 or a 3 to 9 power optic, and you can actually see what you're hitting at the 100-yard range. You can tell if you're actually hitting the target or not. Because I hate red dots at 100-yard range. I hate them, especially with something like a 223. Because I can't see what I'm shooting at. I can see the target. I can tell where it is. But, you know, the red dot covers so much of it. And then just with the naked eye, I can't tell if I've hit it or not. And I like to know, you know, granted, there are ranges where you just hit the button and the target comes back to you. But a lot of these outdoor places, you got to wait for them to go cold. So you take 2 or 3 shots, you don't know if you're even on paper at that range. And you've got to wait and wait and wait. When they go cold, you go out there, you grab your target, you go, oh, I missed by 4 inches to the right, so I need to adjust my scope. And then you go back and you wait for them to go hot, and that is such a pain in the butt. So, yeah, a nice optic that's magnified, a long scope, is going to be cool. But remember, that adds a lot of weight. You start getting into these big optics, you're going to get a heavy rifle. So if in your plans somewhere is the idea that you're going to escape off into the woods and hide, a bigger scope's adding more weight than you might want to carry. If you're in the woods, you're probably not going to be shooting 100, 150, 200 yards, 300 yards, 500 yards. You're not going to be shooting at small paper targets at that distance to where you need a magnified scope that weighs that much. You're just adding useless weight. So keep that in mind. If it's a bug out gun, unless you live somewhere, I mean, you know, I'm living in Florida, so from here, it's hard to find 100 yards open land anywhere. If you live, I don't know, in Montana or the desert somewhere, then all of this is off. You just probably should just go ahead and get your long scope and be happy with it. You know, if you've got 500 acres of open land for property, get your long scope and be happy with it. Maybe put some backup iron sights at 45 degrees or something like that on there and be done. But if you have that kind of land, I'm guessing you probably already have, you know, a selection of rifles to choose from. So I'm thinking this is more for your normal people. If you're in an apartment, we're going back to, you know, red dot, or I'm saying red dot. If you're in an apartment, I'm thinking red dot's probably your best bet. Now, in terms of price and quality, look, guys, there's a gamut. There is a plethora, yes, plethora of options, ranging from little $20 red dot scope or red dot reflexes out to, you know, $10,000 Schmidt and Bender, you know, long range scopes. What do you want? What's best for you? Well, I always say get the best that you can truly afford, but never get more than you can afford. So if you do not have it budgeted, you know, if you don't have tens of thousands of dollars laying around, don't get a $5,000 scope. It's just not worth it for you. It's not going to do that much for you. If you're a precision shooter and you're worried about being able to see a crystal clear target at range at dusk, then sure, whatever. But if your goal is to do what we're talking about here, defense of home and property, I would suggest looking between $200 and $400 for a scope. But if you're sitting there going, oh my God, $200 to $400, that's too much money, don't panic. There's options for you. You get into something, you know, look, Simmons. I've had several Simmons scopes on my deals. Are they the clearest? No. Are they the most precise? No. Would you hit a man-sized target at 200 yards consistently if all other things were proper? Like, is that scope going to hold your target well enough and be clear enough and have good enough reticle that you can consistently hit a man-sized target at 200 yards? Absolutely. Absolutely. I've never had a problem with a Simmons, you know, $50, $60 scope. So if you're looking for a long scope, you can get into something like that. I have a center point. I can't remember how much I paid for it. I'll try and roll it in. It's probably gone up since then anyway. a center point tactical scope on one of my rifles, and it holds 0 just fine. And it's, you know, it's riding on a 223. It's not getting a lot of recoil, but it's holding 0 perfectly. I will say that I'm going to do a review on it, just the reason I got it, but I will say that the illuminated part of that reticle it's really ugly. It's bad. There's a lot of washout all around it. You turn on that illumination and all you see is just a big, you know, green. The whole glass turns green or red, whichever you turn it on to, and it kind of washes out what's behind it. So it's not a high quality optic, but for what we're talking about, I think it's suitable. It is suitable for the price and for what we're doing. So don't panic. There are a lot of things out there. I've seen some, what is it, Field something Stream, I don't know, something like that, Field and Stream, I don't know, one of those, make a little red dot that kind of mimics some of the higher end brands. It does not turn itself off. So if you're gonna get it, get a bunch of batteries, because you're gonna leave it on, or you're gonna knock that switch over and turn it on. But it holds 0. Again, it'll hit a man-sized target, you know, consistently. You can shoot at a tree and hit that tree all day long within 50 yards with this thing. Yeah, it's splotchy looking, and the blast isn't the best, and you know, there are a lot of things that aren't perfect about it, but it holds 0 and it does the job. So don't panic if you can't afford something high-end, or if you're just buying that secondary rifle and, you know, not sure what you want to do with it. And that's another thing I meant to mention, is if you're just buying this for a family member, kind of a, you know, toss-off rifle, red dot, absolutely red dot, because even the worst shooter can look at a red dot and you know, see, get a good field of view, see what they're shooting at, pull the trigger. Anybody can use a red dot. So that's something else to consider. Excuse me. So look guys, this dragged on way too long. I'm sure there are going to be a lot more questions about this, and I hope I can answer them for you. But yeah, just hit me up. Let me know what you think. Thanks a lot guys.